The rusty old pickup truck rattled as it pulled into the crowded parking lot of the divorce courthouse. Its faded paint was peeling from years under the scorching sun, and the engine sounded like it was fighting for its final breath. Heads turned as the truck rolled past rows of luxury cars. Some people stared with pity. Others smirked. But no one laughed harder than the woman standing near the courthouse entrance. She was dressed in an expensive designer suit, sunglasses resting perfectly on her face, her posture radiating confidence. She looked at the old truck, then at the man stepping out of it, and a smile of pure mockery spread across her lips. That man was her ex-husband. What she didn't know was that within the next hour, something would happen that would leave everyone in that parking lot speechless. And when a private jet touched down nearby, her laughter would disappear forever. Before we begin this emotional story, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe kindness always comes back around. David Turner stepped out of the truck and adjusted the collar of his worn jacket. He looked tired, but not defeated. His hands were rough from years of hard work, and there were lines around his eyes that only struggle could create. Most people who saw him that morning assumed he had lost everything. In a way, he had. 5 years earlier, David had been living a completely different life. He owned a growing technology company, lived in a beautiful house overlooking the water, and seemed to have everything people dream about. More importantly, he had a family. His wife, Rebecca, had once loved him deeply. At least that's what he believed. Together they had a daughter named Emma, a bright little girl whose laughter could light up any room. For a while, life felt perfect. Then everything began to unravel. David's company faced unexpected challenges. Investors pulled out. Markets shifted. Projects failed. What started as a temporary financial setback slowly became a nightmare. The pressure was enormous. He spent countless nights working, trying to save the business. He sacrificed sleep, comfort, and nearly every moment of personal time. Rebecca didn't see a husband fighting for their future. She saw a man who was losing. Arguments became frequent. Distance replaced affection. Resentment filled the spaces where love once existed. As the business continued struggling, their marriage suffered even more. Then came the day David would never forget. Rebecca told him she wanted a divorce. The words hit harder than any financial loss. David begged for time. He promised he could fix things. He promised the company would recover. But Rebecca had already made her decision. She wasn't willing to wait. When the divorce proceedings began, David's world collapsed completely. The company eventually filed for bankruptcy. Their assets were divided. Their home was sold. Friends disappeared. Business partners vanished. People who once praised him suddenly acted as if they had never known him. Only one thing mattered to David now. Emma. His daughter became the reason he woke up every morning. While Rebecca focused on rebuilding a luxurious lifestyle, David focused on becoming the best father he could be. He moved into a small rented house outside town. The roof leaked when it rained. The furniture was old. Money was always tight. But every weekend when Emma visited, David made sure she felt loved. They built pillow forts. They watched movies together. They ate homemade pancakes on Sunday mornings. Those moments became priceless. Emma never cared about money. She cared about her father. Over time, David accepted something important. Success wasn't measured by bank accounts. It was measured by the people who stayed when everything else disappeared. 3 years passed. David worked wherever he could find opportunities. Construction sites. Repair shops. Consulting projects. Long hours. Low pay. Endless sacrifices. Yet nobody knew what he was secretly doing during those years. Every night after Emma went to sleep during her visits, David sat at an old desk and worked on a new idea. He studied trends, analyzed markets, learned new technologies, tested concepts, failed repeatedly, started over, failed again, and kept going. There were countless moments when quitting seemed easier. But each time he looked at a photograph of Emma taped beside his desk, he found strength to continue. Slowly, piece by piece, his vision began taking shape. A small breakthrough led to another. A prototype became a product. A product attracted attention. Attention attracted investors. Investors brought opportunity. But David told almost nobody. He remembered how quickly people disappeared when his first company collapsed. This time he chose silence. This time he chose patience. While the world assumed he was struggling to survive, David was quietly building something extraordinary. By the 4th year after the divorce, his new company was expanding faster than anyone expected. Major contracts arrived. Revenue surged. Investors competed to work with him. Industry magazines started mentioning his name again. Yet David continued driving the same old truck. He continued living modestly. He continued showing up for Emma every chance he got. Because wealth no longer impressed him. Character did. Then came the day of the final custody review hearing. Although their divorce had been finalized years earlier, certain legal matters regarding Emma's future needed resolution. Both parents were required to appear. Rebecca arrived first. She stepped out of a luxury vehicle worth more than many people's homes. Everything about her appearance projected success. Her social media followers admired her lifestyle. Her friends envied her vacations. Her image seemed flawless. Then David arrived in his old truck. The contrast couldn't have been greater. Rebecca noticed immediately. She laughed. Several people nearby glanced toward David. Some assumed he must be struggling financially. Others wondered how someone who looked so ordinary could have once been a successful entrepreneur. David ignored them all. Experience had taught him something valuable. People often judge chapters they haven't read. As he walked toward the courthouse entrance, he spotted Emma waiting nearby with her grandmother. The moment she saw him, her face lit up. She ran into his arms without hesitation. That hug reminded David why every sacrifice had been worth it. Nothing else mattered. Inside the courthouse, tensions were high. Lawyers reviewed documents. Officials discussed arrangements. Rebecca seemed unusually confident. David remained calm. He knew something no one else in that room knew. The previous evening, a historic deal had been finalized. A multinational corporation had officially acquired his company. The agreement was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. News of the acquisition had not yet become public. Only a handful of people on Earth knew about it. David wasn't interested in bragging. In fact, he planned to keep living exactly as before. Money no longer defined him. But fate had other plans. As proceedings continued, one of Rebecca's attorneys casually mentioned financial stability. The implication was subtle but clear. They wanted everyone to believe Rebecca could provide a superior future because of her wealth and lifestyle. David listened quietly. Years earlier, those comments would have hurt him. Not anymore. Because he had learned that true security wasn't built on appearances. It was built on integrity. Outside the courthouse, something unexpected was happening. Several black vehicles began arriving. Security personnel stepped out. People noticed immediately. Whispers spread across the parking lot. Who was coming? Why were luxury vehicles gathering near the courthouse? Nobody knew. Not yet. Inside, the hearing continued. Emma sat quietly, occasionally glancing toward her father. She trusted him completely. To her, he wasn't a failed businessman. He wasn't a man driving an old truck. He wasn't someone society judged. He was simply Dad. And that made him the richest man in the world. Minutes later, a courthouse employee entered the room carrying a phone. He approached David carefully. The employee looked nervous. Very nervous. Everyone watched as he whispered something into David's ear. For the first time that day, surprise appeared on David's face. He stood slowly. The room fell silent. Then the employee repeated the words loud enough for others nearby to hear. A representative from the acquiring corporation had arrived unexpectedly. They needed David immediately. And they had come by private aircraft. The room froze. Rebecca's confident smile began fading. Because suddenly, the man she had spent years mocking no longer looked like a failure. He looked like a mystery. And outside, the sound of approaching jet engines was growing louder.